All right, guys, we're back. Part two, Kam Dasani, Marckesano. We talked a lot about dating and social circle last time, and today we're going to talk about the real funnel of becoming a complete man, from having active income and success in your job and career to strategically investing in cryptocurrency to building the dating and social life that you want. So I'll kick it off to Brian and have him start with some questions that you guys probably want to hear, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Cam, what's up, man? Good to see you again, bro.
Good to see you, man. It's been a minute.
Yep. Okay, my question for you, the one thing that I was curious about, we didn't have a chance to talk about in part one, was how did you make a transition from teaching and coaching dating into the crypto stuff?
Yeah. So the first time I ever entered the online space, the reason I wanted to teach dating was because people were just coming to me for that naturally because they saw the social life and dating life that I had built. Um, Rewinding a little bit, if we go back to when I was 22 and I was working in tech, that's really when I started to realize that talking to women was not natural for me and it was not easy for me. And I was living in San Francisco. Very hard city to approach women, let alone date at all. Ratio is 7-3, lots of money in the city, very competitive, very exclusive events. And if you're not part of those events, it's very hard to access the type of women you want to talk to.
Mm.
And if you can't go to those events, you basically are going to have to cold approach in random areas like Starbucks or the gym. And that's a hard thing to do. And the reality is, I had to do it the hard way. So I
Mm.
learned it the hard way and I got really, really good. And honestly, it all paid off because I had a skill that everybody wanted and was willing to pay to learn how to do it.
Nice.
So I combined my tech career with building this dating business, and I did, online coaching, I did in-person events, and things were going really well. But the issue for me was if I got people results, they didn't need me anymore. So I was always on the hunt for new clients. Um, and so, example, I get you a girlfriend. You don't really need to work with me one on one every week,
Sure.
anymore, right? And if I don't get you results, it usually had to do with one of three reasons. Either one, you didn't do the work, and the work is hard. No one said it was going to be easy. Two, you didn't have the other things down. Like maybe you wanted to date, but you weren't really established in your career, or you're 40 pounds overweight. Like we need to fix those things simultaneously too. And it just became very challenging to deal with the type of clientele I wanted to deal with.
Mm.
So I realized also when I met you, the way that you're teaching dating is so much easier than the way that I teach it, in the context of the funnel becomes larger. And if you combine my skill set and yours,
Mm.
you're literally unstoppable with any woman ever. And I think so. Why did I transition to crypto? I transitioned to crypto because I've been successful at it for 6 years. It was never something that people really came to me for. But the reality is, I have results. And now that crypto's been pretty hot for a couple of years, people did start coming to me for it just through my network. And I started
Yeah.
building this organically. And I also realized from a business perspective, if I'm making people money, they're going to keep paying to work with me. So I'm not as pressed to find new clients really quickly because it's a more effective model for what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Cool. And so I know you talked about being in tech sales prior to getting into coaching. And I think that that's a pretty hot topic in the dating space, what the order of operations actually is when it comes to getting the pillars of your masculinity put into place. So I know the answer for me, but what did it look like for you in terms of what came first? Did you get your career handled first? Did you make the money before you started developing your social skills, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, great question. So I think this is a huge problem for people because they want to wait for one thing to be perfect before they even work on the other thing, not realizing that perfection doesn't exist. And you're going to keep chasing growth if you're an ambitious, growth oriented person, which most of the people we talk to are, right? So, like I said, when I was 22, I started working in tech sales. I made 120 grand my first year out of college. And that's because I performed. That's because I studied, I learned, I worked with the top performers, I asked for help when I needed it, and quite frankly, I got into a good company, right? Now, I didn't wait to make 120 grand before I started working on dating. As soon as I moved to the city and I realized, okay, I'm getting 10K a month, I'm also seeing women every day that I want to talk to. I feel like a bitch for not being able to talk to them. I go home upset every night. This needs to change. So I started to develop that skill on my own, but also alongside other people that knew how to do it, right? And if I didn't have mentors in tech, let alone cold approach and dating and verbal game, meaning just talking to women correctly in a way that actually makes them want to talk to you back, I don't even know where I'd be at turning 30 in March, right? 7, 8 years later, if I didn't have the mentors around me. So I think it's important to understand that if you're not making money actively, like, and when I say making money, it's all relative to where you live. Like, if you live in Bali, like, you can make 3 grand a month and be rich or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. But I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I still live in the Bay Area. 10K a month is like an entry level job, or I would say 7K a month is like an entry level job out of college in tech here. But the point is, I got my job. First month, I started talking to girls and starting to learn that. Like, it wasn't like I waited. I was also in the gym every day, right? I was also working on my health and fitness. And then once I had like started making money as well, like 2, 3, 4 months in, it was actually my first sales manager that introduced me to crypto when this was like 2018 and like Bitcoin and Ethereum were under a few thousand.
Yeah.
Right? So like all of this was happening simultaneously, but I think there is an order of operations in the sense of you shouldn't just be like trying to like date hot girls if you literally have no job or no business or no active income. It just doesn't make any sense.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and for me, man, my entire life was a progression socially, progression financially, and I think, in my opinion, I would not have been able to really deep dive into the social skills stuff had I not had some of those financial things taken care of. Because let's be honest, developing your social skills from a perspective of friendships, networking, and dating can take away from some of the bandwidth that you could otherwise use to putting your development and your learning towards high value skills that can increase your income. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do all of it at the same time, and it's important to have balance. However, like you said, for the guys that are living check to check, kind of struggling to get by right now, right? The ones that are just barely scraping by depending on where they live. Tell us a little bit about your connections in the tech sales space. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of your background and experience there and how you're actually able to help guys land some of these pretty like high income jobs.
Yeah, 100%. So one misconception about tech sales is that you have to be in like San Francisco or New York, which is not the case. One, there are tons of remote jobs. Two, there are tech hubs everywhere. So people just don't know that because like it's not as like well marketed, right? So it doesn't really matter where you live unless you're like in Alaska. There are jobs for you, and you don't need skills in the sense of they're not looking for a highly trained person. They're looking for someone with no experience that is hungry and can interview well. Okay, and I want to make that very clear. If you don't have experience, but you are hungry, willing to learn, willing to work hard, and you interview well, things that I can help you do, you can get a 100K job, minimum 60, just to be transparent, 60K, depending on where you live, 100K straight out of college, or it doesn't even matter if you're in college or have done college. If you're 28 and you just have been working at Starbucks, or you're 35 and you're working at Starbucks and you want a career change, this is something that you can do. So it's the best W-2 job, in my opinion, for a few reasons. Highest income potential with no experience or skills to start off. And I'm still in tech sales 7 years in, and I make multiple six figures in a senior position at an 800-person company. So I just got somebody a job at my company, literally. He started the interview process on January 29th, and he starts the job on March 3rd. Right now it's February 23rd. So he got the job in under a month, and he's starting in a couple weeks. fresh
Nice.
out of a state school, normal school, and he didn't even need that degree to get the job. So the other reason it's a really good W-2 and it's the best W-2 in my opinion is because you're only working, like actually working 25 to 30 hours a week. And then depending on like how much you want to do, if you want to over excel, you can work more obviously. But it's really just about performance. Like example, I closed 3 deals last month. I'm kind of coasting right now because I'm already at my number.
Yeah.
So all of that's important because one, the connections you'll build, right? And I've built connections over 7 years. So like my whole thing is I will introduce you to the hiring managers at the companies that I know, get you interviews, prep you for those interviews, and get you a job in 30 to 90 days max.
That's badass.
So like I have a guy in my DMs right now. I think actually you know him. I'm not going to say his name, but he follows both of us. And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I just want to grind it out, but I want to get into tech sales." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like I just want to like do it alone. I'm like, "Oh, cool. Makes total sense. That's probably why you're not anywhere." Right? Because like he's not willing to use the connections that are at his disposal
Yeah.
like to get the job that he wants. It's like somebody came to you and said, "Hey Brian, I would love to take you on a yacht party to meet Megan Fox." And you're like, "No, I'll just DM her. Like I'll
Yeah.
just do that." Like it's like, okay, like it's not very smart, right? So understanding that even how did I get my this job at an 800 person company? Through connections, not just because I blindly applied to jobs and like prayed to God it worked, right? There's 100 applicants for these jobs. How are you going to stand out? Well, yes, I'll help you, redo your LinkedIn, redo your resume. But it's really about just getting in the door through a warm referral. The same way you teach social circle, right? You throw an event, you're the host of the party. Now you're the one with power.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same way how the highest quality women aren't going to be on the dating apps. The same way the best jobs aren't necessarily going to be posted on Indeed or LinkedIn. So if you focus all of your energy on trying to upgrade your resume, you're not going to have as good of an ROI as if you were trying to improve your social connections. So we can start to talk about how all of these different things begin to tie together. What I wanted to say about sales specifically to all of the guys listening to this that are thinking about either taking Cam up on his mentorship with getting into the sales process or are already in sales or going in that direction is that I think getting a sales job is a hack for multiple reasons. And that's what I always did throughout my entire career. I was always in sales. I didn't go to college, man. And to this day, I'm glad that I don't have any of those student loans on my balance sheet. I can definitely say that. But not only do you have a high income earning potential, it's also based off of performance, meaning the harder that you work, the more that you can make. But you're also simultaneously getting trained in psychology and persuasion. So that's going to be able to parlay into networking and then dating as well. So that's why I kind of feel like the sales thing is a triple threat. Like you can get a lot from it. So let's say a guy has the sales job, he's making the money, he's got a little bit of a disposable income to put into things like, nicer cologne, nicer fashion, things of that nature. What do you think are some skills that he should begin to learn next? Like, what do you think the next move is after you kind of have your baseline needs taken care of and you got a little bit of like, extra money sitting around? What do you think?
Yeah. I want to touch on one thing that you said that I think is important. Um, Understanding that sales is a triple threat that can help you with other things in life, right? So, for example, when I had my first job out of college and I was making 120K a year, I was confident because I was performing in my job, which gave me confidence to approach women. And then when I was approaching women and like being successful with women, I was so much more confident in sales. And I
Yeah.
was so much more persuasive and I could just say what I needed to say with no hesitation and get the job done. And it goes back and forth, right? You'll see a guy with a nice watch at a bar and he'll say, "Hey man, I like that watch." And that's a new connection because you don't even know what he can offer you. And I've done that exact thing, right? So understanding that like when you become good at one thing, and to be honest, dude, like when I became really, really good at approaching women and my tech colleagues started to see that, like we would go out for lunch and they'd be like, "Damn, that girl's fine." And I would go over there and actually do something about it and they would all watch and they'd be like, "How the fuck did you do that?"
Wow. Yeah.
That's what gave me so much confidence in my life to take all the risks that I have to build the life that I now have, right?
Mm.
The everything that I have today is because of the start of the triple threat that starts from the sales job, which then leads to learning how to talk to girls, which then realizes that like, dude, if you can talk to girls even like 7 out of 10 at the level that I can, you're better than 9 out of 10 men on the planet, bro. You're just better because most men are avoiding the women that they want to talk to every day. Um, so with that all said, to get back to what you're asking, what else should they be like investing their time and money in? Is what you're saying once they have the
Yep.
ball rolling?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on, I think health and fitness is important. Um,
Hmm.
I think like at the end of the day, like I have a client who's been working with me for 6 months. He's lost 40 pounds in 6 months, and like he came to a boot camp, a dating boot camp of mine last summer, and the reality was like he just didn't look the part. No matter how well he spoke to girls, if you're 40 pounds overweight, it's just going to be hard. And he knew that, but he wanted to come and see what he could do, and we pivoted from there. So I think like I'm not saying you have to be jacked. Like Brian's in better shape than I am. I'm like kind of a tall branch for lack of better terms. But you just don't need. You just want to not look like shit.
Mm.
Okay, what does that mean? That means don't have a big gut. I'm lean. I don't have a ton of muscle. Like you can't really tell right now, but like I'm also 6 feet tall, right? So you got to play to your strengths. If you're 5'8", you can probably get jacked a little easier than me, and you'll look bigger because you're more stocky. Um, but like I said, you don't have to necessarily be jacked. You just have to not look like garbage,
Yeah.
right? And fit in your clothes well. I think those things are important. Um, in terms of like investing your money to have it grow, look, the world will tell you that you should invest in like the S&P 500, which is something I do. Like I invest 7 grand a year in the S&P 500 just to like protect my money against inflation and fight, against the bank in the
Hmm.
sense that and I'll make 6% of that year over year after inflation, right? Which is fine, but it's not going to really like change my life until I'm like 60 and it's like going to be $1 million worth or whatever, right? So you can do that. You can buy a house. Most people that buy a house don't actually make money from their house because they buy it and they're paying interest on it. You're paying, it's not paying you. So most people aren't buying houses and renting them out because they don't have the time or knowledge or expertise to do that. The investment opportunity of this generation is in crypto. It's the fastest growing asset class in history. And if you are thinking you're too late or you're like sleeping on it or you think it's a scam, I don't even know like what to tell you because like you don't know what a scam is if you think crypto is a scam. The reality is, what does a scam mean? A scam means I give you money and you take it and run away and don't give me anything that you promised me.
Right.
Okay, crypto's not. I mean, there are scams in crypto. You can pay somebody in crypto and they can disappear, but that would mean that Zelle is also a scam because I can Zelle you and you cannot talk to me tomorrow either. I can
Sure.
buy a house and like the house can disappear tomorrow. It can be burned down. There's a lot of scams that happen in every industry. There's a lot of social media hype around crypto scams, so people are scared of crypto, and I think that's the problem. People don't understand that if you just invest on the right exchanges, you're not going to get scammed. That's the whole point of crypto. It's so you are in charge of your funds and in charge of your money, and the bank is not. Because when you give
Mm.
your money to the bank, they're lending it out and doing a bunch of things with it, and it's not even really yours. Now,
Mm.
people can say that's a conspiracy or whatever. Does it really affect you on a day to day basis? No. The biggest point here is if you invest in crypto strategically, like I have over 6 years, you can make ridiculous amounts of money because it is an asset class that is only 20 years old and it's brand new and it's appreciating like never before. I had Bitcoin in 2018 when my manager told me about it. I bought 4 Bitcoins under, it was like 4K, and they're worth 100 grand each now. So you can do the fucking math, right?
Mhm.
But the point is, doing that and just waiting while my dad, who's even a PhD in double E, a PhD in electrical engineering, very smart guy, was begging me to sell my crypto. He said, you're gonna waste your money, you're gonna lose it all, it's a waste of time. He was wrong, okay? And, besides just Bitcoin alone, I've also co-founded my own projects that did very well in 2020. Me and my friends made a lot of money with that. And that's when I really started my group because I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing with crypto. I have a team of people and analysts around me that are really good as well. Let's democratize this opportunity to the world because they deserve it.
100%. Okay, so what I understand from what you're saying is that once somebody gets established, they'll probably want to take a similar path that I did. Like for example, we'll back up and we'll just go back in time. So let's go all the way back to when I dropped out of college. I went to one semester and I got like a couple of straight A's. I actually like enjoyed it, but I was like, I'm not gonna sit in this chair for 4 more years just to like one day be able to hopefully get some type of degree or diploma that's gonna get me a job where I can make money someday. Like I was
Yeah.
like, why can't I make money now and get the ball rolling right away? All I need is some skills to make money. And when I got into sales, that's what I had to do first is develop my skills. So confidence and then money is going to be what leads into success with social circle and then dating. So to get money, you have to start to develop confidence. You start to develop confidence by developing a skill. Sales is a skill you can learn, develop confidence, and make money. So I was just on YouTube, like just learning sales. And my first job ever was selling gym memberships. Okay, went all out on YouTube, learned everything that I could about selling gym memberships, gave me a good foundation, boom, parlayed that into selling cars. And I remember, like, now that I was making a little more money, I was buying a few more courses to teach me how to sell cars even better. So, very early on, I was investing in education. And a lot of this has to do with just like confidence building, frame building, understanding persuasion, and understanding psychology, which again is going to start to really ramp up later on. So from there, I went into to software sales. So I was selling marketing software, and then I got into the mortgage industry. So the mortgage industry is what brought me to Charlotte, which caused me to make this really big move. And again, all the way up until this point in my life, I was really still like making huge mistakes with dating, just dating the wrong women and disappearing for years. All these like like just the typical stuff that you see a lot of guys struggling with. And the move caused me to make more money while simultaneously have a really huge deficit socially. And so it was at that point that because I had such a good amount of disposable income, I was able to not just get the new clothes, not just get the best gym membership like you were talking about, not just get the best courses for my mindset and all of that different stuff, but I also had some extra money to deploy into various things, right? So I was able to afford some bottles at the club, which gave me a little bit of leverage. So we start talking about leverage, not just in dating and not just in social circle, but also with money as well. And I'll give it back to you in a second. But where I started using my money to give me leverage was in ways where I could give myself that situational status that we talked about on the last call and differentiate myself. So I didn't really think about it this way, but when I was doing, big night outs where I was buying trays of shots, or if I was like getting tables and stuff like that, I was kind of doing this like social circle thing where I was providing value for a mass amount of people kind of at scale. So you can really start to use your money to reinvest it, and then my network would expand, my opportunities would expand. That's what allowed me to get better mortgage jobs. That's what allowed me to be even, more secure in my career because the relationships that I made put me in a position where I was basically unfireable. Like I swear I could like walk into the office with my dick hanging out of my pants and like nothing would happen. And that's the power of social connections. Um, and nowadays, if you have a little bit of extra money, even $50, you can run Instagram ads to men and women in your city and just get them hitting you up. And all you've got to do is just say, hey, meet here on this day, on this time. We're throwing a little party, get all these people together, bada bing, bada boom. Now you're making friends with boat owners and then women that otherwise you'd have had to go, find on the streets or, pray that she would match with you on an app. And on the money side, I finally had enough where I was able to afford those things and start investing. So I made the mistakes of like, trying to buy and sell different stocks one at a time. And then eventually I just landed on like ETFs, which would just give me like a set it and forget it type of thing, but it was really slow. So now what I do is I put my money into private lending for real estate at 11% annual percentage, which is okay, but it's not really that much. So I think that's what makes the crypto piece so intriguing and so interesting is like at the pinnacle of all of this, you've got your confidence down, you've got your social skills down, you've got your dating down, you've got your friendships down, you've got your finances down, and now it's like there's an opportunity to at the very tip of the iceberg start reinvesting some of this money where it's like you can see 5x returns, 10x returns. So from what I understand based on what you're saying is that crypto is the opportunity for guys that are really looking to are in an especially good spot and really want to just like add insult to injury for everybody else who isn't crushing it right now because this is super high leverage. Do I have that right?
You do, you do. So the reality is, it's interesting because there is no barrier to entry to invest in crypto like there is in other investments. So for example, with real estate, like you can't just like invest $100. You can technically, you can like buy shares of like some real estate fund, but like to buy property, you need capital. That is just the reality. Whether you borrow it or use your own, you need it. Even with stocks like options trading, the contracts I don't want to go too like tangent, but like the contracts for options trading on the US stock market cost a certain amount of money. If you want to do a Tesla call, this, it's going to cost you $800 to get into that play. The difference with crypto is there is no minimum. And regardless of what you invest, whether you invest $100 or $1,000, you have potential to 5 to 10x your money if you're in the right projects. And that's what we've done. So we've done a 6x since May of 2023, simply by one, investing on the right decentralized exchanges. For people that don't know what that means, decentralized just means the opposite of centralized. Centralized means Robinhood and Coinbase, which are apps you can get on your phone that are regulated by the US government and the SEC. Okay. Why does this matter? Because all the projects on Robinhood and Coinbase are already regulated and established enough to where the masses can get into them. Whereas on decentralized exchanges, they're not regulated projects, so they're very, very low cost, which means when you get in, the potential is so much bigger to grow. And then once those same projects get regulated on Coinbase or Robinhood, you've already beat most of the people because they're going to invest in it when it's regulated, but you got in early. So I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody came to you in 2013 and said, hey, buddy, Brian, we're going to build this Uber thing. And it's a taxi thing, it's a taxi service, but it's like regular people picking you up and whatever. What if you invested 10 grand in Uber? You would be so rich right now. But you didn't have that opportunity. Why? You didn't have the connections. Two, you probably weren't an accredited investor in 2013. An accredited investor, for those who don't know, means you need to either make 200 grand a year or have $1 million in liquid net worth. Okay? So the point is, all the best opportunities to invest are usually reserved for the already rich. I want to say that again. Most of the best investment opportunities out there are usually reserved for people that already have money. Okay? Crypto has allowed this to change by allowing regular people to invest any amount of money that they want with no one telling them they can't do it and 5 to 10x their money.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's insane.
That's badass. All right, I love that. That was a really good explanation. So here's kind of one of the last things that I wanted to get from you, because for a lot of you guys out there that might have money, maybe you've got your looks down, maybe you've even got some other things going for you as well, except for one thing, right? You can have all these different elements, but if you don't have the ability, if you don't have the mouthpiece and the ability to communicate effectively with women, or as you would put it, Cam, if you don't know how to talk to women like a pro, no amount of situational status, no amount of looks, no amount of money is going to save you. So explain how a guy can have all the money in the world, he can have all of the drip in the world, all of these different things, but if he lacks that one skill, the ability to talk to a woman like a pro, it's not going to go anywhere. What have you found to be true in that sense, and what are just some like action items that somebody could watch this video and take away?
Yeah. Love this question. So here's the first thing. Women are turned on by what they hear, not by what they see. Okay? So you might hear a girl say, oh yeah, he's really handsome, or he's really in shape, or he's dressed super well when she's out. But at the end of the day, she's not going to approach you most likely, no matter who you are. Even if you're a celebrity, she probably won't. She'll probably just wait until you do. And if you don't start the conversation the right way, it doesn't really matter. Okay? And if you don't keep the conversation going the right way, it also doesn't really matter. So even with my dating clients, and you've probably seen this as well, I've worked with doctors, I've worked with attorneys, I've worked with high-level tech guys, I've worked with investment bankers that are handsome, successful, but do not have this communication skill on a man to woman level. They might be able to do a sales call, they might be able to crush business, whatever they're doing, but talking to women, man, it's if you don't have a system for your communication, you're just winging it. And I think that's crazy because like I don't get on sales calls and wing it. I don't go to networking events and just like have a drink in my hand and stand with my back against the car and like hope something happens. I have a system for that. And to give you an overview of what that system is, when you approach a woman, there's basically two ways you can talk to her. There's an indirect opener, which is, hey, like, what are you going to order, right? If you're in line at Starbucks, and that's totally normal, and it can get you in the door, right? Most guys just won't do it because they're scared to even say that. And there's a bunch of ways to get over your approach anxiety through progressive overload, right? Like, just like making eye contact with 10 people in a row, saying hi to 10 people in a row, and now you're a little more warmed up, right? So you can do those things to eventually get to the point where you can tell the girl in front of you, hey, so what are you about to order? It's actually a normal question. Most people think, well, that's fucking weird. No, it's not. It's a normal question. What's happening in her DMs is way weirder, trust me.
Right.
That's probably the most normal thing that's happened to her. So that's one way. The other way is you can be direct. And this is interesting because there's so much in regards to delivery that matters, right? Like I can walk up to a girl and say, hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. Like, I think you're so beautiful. I think you're so cute. I just wanted to say hi. I sound fucking lame. But if I deliver it like a baller, you can get away with a lot of shit if you're direct. Now, what I would advise most guys to do is find the in-between of direct and indirect. Find something subtle that you can say in between where it's like, hey, like you actually look really well put together today. It's not, you're not like putting her on a pedestal, but you're also not like being indirect to the point where she doesn't know what you're talking about. She's going to receive the compliment, oh, thanks. Keep in mind, if she doesn't continue the conversation, that doesn't mean she's not interested. You started the conversation, so you have to carry the conversation at least for 20, 30 seconds until she's warmed up enough to know what type of conversation this is. So that's the opener. The next step is setting premise. Premise just means, hey, we are going to establish kind of what this conversation is about in a very subtle way. It's a little different than intent, and a lot of guys set intent where they're basically like, oh, hey, like I'd love to take you out sometime, and they do it really early, and the girl has to decide right there, yes or no. And most of the time she's going to say no because she just doesn't know you well enough in those few minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay? So setting premise by doing things like complimenting different things subtly as you're talking, or like if she says something and her voice cracks, you like observe that. You're like, oh wow, your voice cracked. It's okay if you're nervous. Like it's not a big deal, right? Just being flirtatious in that way by being observant. Step 3 is evaluating. Okay, evaluating just means who is actually pursuing who in this conversation. And if you're really elite, the girl should be chasing you. And the way you can flip the script to make this happen is saying things like, okay, so tell me more about yourself. Very easy to do, but most guys won't do it. If you tell her to tell you more about herself, she's gonna tell you good things. She's not gonna say she's a mess. She's not gonna say all her exes suck. She's not gonna say she has a shitty job. She's not gonna say any of this. She's gonna hype herself up, which is gonna make herself prove herself to you, subconsciously and in real life. So now she's chasing you. And then the last step is closing, right? How do we close? A lot of guys, they're very direct with it. Hey, I'd love to take you to dinner sometime. She has to say yes or no. You have to build it, okay, in multiple steps. I like to say things like, I wouldn't be opposed to potentially getting together another time. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed either. Cool. I typically don't give my number out just when meeting a stranger. I don't really know who you are, but I'd love to get your Instagram. The framing of it is way different. I typically don't give my number out. Women say that. Right. So I've become the bad bitch in the conversation, and she is now pursuing me, and the close becomes effortless.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so from what I've seen, a lot of guys make the mistake of thinking that when they get their money in order and when they get their finances in order, and even, dude, if you build a social circle around you, or if you set up a party or an event or a photo shoot or whatever, they think that they can win. And so they really go all in on these different pillars and value pillars, which you need to do, but that alone isn't enough, because what happens is without understanding the communication aspect, they're losing the psychological battle that's happening between a man and a woman, which of interest levels, right? Like just because of hypergamy, if you are more interested than she is, then she's naturally going to be forced to look for better, right? So understanding the psychology is going to help you with how you're phrasing things and framing things. And if you fail to understand this, it doesn't matter how dope your party was, it doesn't matter how many people you know, because at some point when it's just the two of you and you're communicating face to face, you have to say the right things and you have to lead her emotions in the right direction because, like you said, women fall in love through their emotions, right? And that's elicited through your words, and emotions don't stick. So you can't put a good interaction or a good piece of interaction in a bank account. It doesn't stack up, right?
Yeah.
Moment by moment by moment, she has to continue to feel this emotion, and then you also kind of have to continue to cause her to chase. And guys don't understand this stuff. So that's why I think this like collaboration between us is so badass, because it's like, let's get the money handled, let's get the fitness handled, let's get the fashion handled, let's get the dating stuff handled, and then let's get the social circle stuff handled. And let's use the highest leverage opportunities in 2025 to do each of these things.
And Brian, I love that, and I want to say one thing on that. Guys, if you think women really care a lot about money and that's what's going to make them choose you, you are wrong. And I'll tell you from experience, when I was 22 in the city, no one knew I was making 120 grand a year or any number, and I dressed normally. I lived on a lady's living room floor with a divider. I didn't even have a door because San Francisco was so expensive, and I still hadn't found roommates to be able to afford a place on 120 grand back then. Okay? I was still sleeping with bad females from the gym. Okay? Bang Energy models that were passing out their Bang Energy drinks, if you look up Bang Energy if you want, from the gym, because I knew how to talk to women and make them feel a certain way. Okay? So also, you see a lot of women on social media going viral talking about how they want money, they want this from guys. That's because they know there are suckers out there who will give them money because they can't get girls. So they put on this persona to confuse the guys that aren't worth their time anyways into giving them a bunch of money, whether it's for clothes or dinners or flights or OnlyFans or whatever it is. But then guess who they're dating? Yeah, the guy they're dating is probably successful too, but he's actually not tricking off all of his bread, for lack of better terms, so to make her feel a certain way. There is no correlation between the number of dollars in your account and the way that she feels. What there is a correlation between is the type of experiences you can provide her. And yes, money can provide those types of experiences. Obviously, if you take a girl to Maui, yeah, she's going to have a great time in the warm weather and traveling and having a good time posting on Instagram and not posting you because you suck. But if you make her feel the right way, then she will really love that experience. But there's a ton of guys that take girls on trips and don't even get laid.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so the money stuff and the status stuff, it helps you get in the door, but at the same time, it's only attractive, right? Because, well, there's like some survival stuff, but from a replication perspective, the money and the status is a proxy for your personality. So if you have the personality to be able to make money, that means that you have some type of psychological capability that makes you smart, right? Or if you have the ability to build a social circle and have a social network around you, then all that is just a proxy for other characteristics, right? Like self-confidence, self-assuredness, intelligence, things like that. Now, she might see you, she might observe the G-Wagon, she might see the cash being posted on the Instagram. That's going to get her attention, right? Like that can put you in a category of a higher value guy. But at the end of the day, when you guys are in person, face to face, if the eye contact isn't hitting, if the flirting isn't hitting, it's not going to work out. And really what it comes down to is like, what have you built up in your mind, right? Like, have you built up this inner framework of your value, establishing your frame and having a level of entitlement to the women that you want, having a level of even a little bit of superiority, because if you can't communicate these things, you will always continue to fail because you're just going to continue to exhibit these, really nice guy characteristics. You're going to continue to try to do the things that you think are going to work, and it comes across like you are just simply getting on her good side, right? Like just in exchange for sex. That doesn't work. So Yeah, man, lots to talk about with this subject matter. Like even when it comes down to closing a deal, right? Like there's a buyer and then there's a seller. But you were explaining how just the other day, if somebody's on a sales call with you and they don't seem really interested, you can just flip the script and call that out. You can say, "Look, man, seems like things are going pretty well for you. Like just curious. Like I'm sure you don't hop on calls like this all the time randomly, like just for your health. Like what is it that really brings you here, man? Like what's got you reaching out for help?"
It's funny. Did I tell you I did that the other day? Is that why you
Yeah.
brought that up? Oh, I did. Okay, yeah. And that's what I did, bro. I flipped the script because he didn't seem serious, and I was like pushing him away a little bit. I was just like, "Hey, man, let me know like when you're ready, because it doesn't sound like this is like something you're considering seriously. But I'm happy to talk when you're ready." He's like, "Well, tell me more about your group, right?" And then eventually he just bought, right? So because when you're not thirsty, whether it's with women or sales, people are more attracted to it because they can tell you're not hungry for their money. And the
Right.
reality is I'm not. I mean, and you're not either, right? So I think that's the reality of frame. And people like when they struggle with confidence, they're like, oh, like I'm not confident enough to do this. And you have to flip that script in your own head because the reality is the reason you're not confident is because you don't have any results, which means you have to go get results despite not being confident to then get those results to make you confident. So, for example, you think my first sales calls ever, I was confident going in? No, I was terrified. But I had to go do what was required to get results to then have the confidence to then keep getting more results. Um,
100%.
so, oh, this was an interesting thing I wanted to ask you, kind of a tangent, but something I've noticed is that in my like, and I've been with the same girl for almost 3 years now, but when I was single, I've always said if you're chasing, she's running in the context of I've never had to wait that long. Like a woman's never made me wait that long despite her class or caliber because if she felt the emotion she wanted to feel, she wanted to have sex either way. The reason I bring this up is because a lot of guys say, oh no, but she's a good girl, that's why she's making me wait. And I just don't find that to be true most of the time. Like I've noticed if it takes longer than 3 dates for her to make a decision on when she wants to on if she wants to sleep with me, she's not going to do it because
Yeah.
she doesn't want to wait 3 dates either. She's just doing it because she's not sure about you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, 100%, bro. I think that that's a good rule to have. I actually see hookup culture going away, and I think this is actually a really good thing. I think it's a shift that's happening right now in social dynamics. I think there's a correction that's actually being made. And I think for the last several years through the early 2020s with the rise of Instagram and all of these different things and online personalities, all this different factors, hookup culture was very, very prominent. People were taking people home from the bars, and it's not to say that they're not, they still are. But dating apps, hookups on first dates, all of that different stuff, I think that from what I can sense, in a really good way, these things are actually slowly going out of style. And women, as well as guys, are starting to recognize that it's not necessarily a healthy thing to just be hooking up 24/7, or at least like super early on, and super often, like for a ton of different reasons, bro. Like there's a ton of risk involved with that. So I see a lot more women wanting to take things slow, and I think that that's a great thing. And I think that guys should also have a mutual respect for that. However, like you said, there's a fine line between being a doormat and having masculine frame, right? Like you've got to be able to walk this edge. Like I want hookup culture to go away, just as much as anybody else because the degeneracy of our humanity is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, you do have to be able to pick up on these cues and realize, are you being strung along and are you about to be friend zoned or are you still leading? You need to continue to lead and you need to continue to escalate and you need to know how to de-escalate in a way that's calibrated. And, you probably shouldn't expect to sleep with a girl on the first date at this point in 2025. Like, I don't recommend that, honestly. But
Interesting.
by the second date, you may not even that may not happen as well. But for sure, like you said, bro, by like the time you're going out for the third time, sex may not happen. Sex does not have to happen, but there will be like lots of other indicators that it's moving in the right direction. So that's
Yeah, you
100% true. And I don't want it to like make this like, graphic or some sort of like, like sexual escalation masterclass or anything like that. But there will be signs that it's going to lead in the right direction. And then you can, take your time to evaluate the girl as well. Because then, if she's by then not material, girlfriend potential, you probably shouldn't sleep with her anyways. Because then once you sleep with her, like you kind of, it's not that you're on the hook for the relationship, but the more that you're just aiming to sleep with women without actually aiming to get to know them, like yeah, I mean, you're gonna get a bad reputation, and you're probably not like acting with like a lot of great like integrity. So
integrity.
I mean, that's my
Yeah,
take.
I agree with everything you're saying. I do want to close on that topic with this. Guys, like, don't have, if I can give you any advice as somebody who's been with my girl for almost 3 years, she's a professional athlete, model, most down to earth girl I've ever met. Um, don't like put limitations on where you can meet the woman that you're going to meet. So whether it's from running Instagram ads with Brian and hosting parties, coming from someone who hosted a party through Instagram ads and through a 200-person pool party in the summer of, I want to say 2022. Yeah, it's 2025 now, so almost 3 years I've been with her. That's where I met my girl. Cool. I'll close it off by saying this, guys. If you're watching at this point, you're obviously interested in leveling up in some way. Brian is going to have a WAP link, okay? And it's basically going to give you access to a free trial with me. I've never run this type of offer before, so I want to see how it goes and see who's serious and understands that whether you want to get into tech sales, whether you want to strategically invest in crypto, I can help you do those things. And if you want to simultaneously level up your network and your social life through Brian and through the easiest way to do it, as someone who's done it the hard way and the easy way, you combine the hard skills that I've developed with the things that Brian allows you to do instead of me, which is what I did for most of my early 20s and mid 20s, which is approach women one after another and build that muscle. Yeah, that's great. But what if you could do that with 20 women at a party that you host where you're in power? That's what Brian can help you do. Either way, like I said, he's going to have a WAP link. We're going to post it. And you can start a free trial with me. It's 7 days, literally free. And whether it's tech sales, crypto, or dating slash networking slash social circle, you decide if you want to work with us past 7 days. Pretty hard to say no after 7 days, given the results that we can get you and the progress that you'll see within 7 days, just with your own life. So yeah, we'll go from there. We'll see you guys soon. Cool. Talk soon, guys. Let me...
For sure.